The club was loud but not chaotic. Every light, every movement, every sound had intention. The VIP section was calm in a different way, controlled, watched, measured. People here did not compete for attention. They already had it elsewhere. I was standing near the edge, unannounced, observing patterns I had learned to trust over decades of building rooms like this. He entered like a storm, phone raised, voice higher than the music, feeding an audience that could not see what truly mattered. He walked past staff without noticing their eyes. He pushed into space without understanding who shaped it. He looked for wristbands, status symbols, signs he could rank. He missed the ones who never needed markers. He glanced at me and dismissed me with a single word. Nobody. It was casual, effortless, delivered without malice. That was the tell. Men who understand power measure before they speak. Men who chase it announce themselves first. I did not correct him. I did not introduce myself. I did not change my expression. I simply lifted my hands slightly, the kind of motion that means nothing unless you belong to the system. The music kept playing. Conversations continued. Security adjusted their posture. The room recalibrated without a scene. The bouncer leaned in close enough to be heard only by me. His voice was calm, professional, already prepared to act. "Boss, do you want him gone?" The answer had not yet been given. He was the kind of man built by algorithms rather than substance. Numbers followed him everywhere, screens glowing with followers, sponsors, metrics. He spoke as if volume created importance, as if attention equaled authority. His confidence was practiced, rehearsed, reinforced by comments and applause, not by responsibility or consequence. He mistook visibility for weight and momentum for permanent control alone. He had learned that cameras soften resistance. When a lens is pointed, doors hesitate, staff smile, rules bend slightly. He moved expecting accommodation, assuming silence meant approval. That technique works in borrowed spaces, rented influence, places impressed by numbers rather than stability or stewardship. It fails where memory exists and ownership keeps records longer than applause cycles ever last there. I watched him carefully, not emotionally. I was not insulted by his dismissal. I was entertained by the accuracy of it. Men like him reveal themselves early. They test rooms the way children test water, loudly, impatiently, unaware. Depth is measured silently by those who built it. Experience recognizes patterns before consequences arrive and stays calm while waiting always does. True ownership moves differently. It does not announce itself or seek permission. It observes, documents, and decides without urgency. Power earned over time does not rise with noise. It lowers its voice. If someone needs the room to know who they are, they have already told you they are passing through not builders, not keepers, not leaders of enduring places. I did not build the club to impress strangers. It was designed to function smoothly long before it dazzled anyone. Licenses renewed without drama. Inspections passed without favors. Partnerships signed quietly with people who valued continuity over flash. Insurance policies reviewed line by line, not after problems but before them. Security contracts written to anticipate behavior, not react to it. Every element worked together like a spine. Staff knew procedures. Cameras recorded without spectacle. Logs were kept even on quiet nights. Relationships with the city were built through consistency, not influence dinners. When something happened, calls were answered because history existed. That kind of structure does not announce itself. It simply responds when needed. He could not see any of that. He saw lights and sound and assumed dominance came from being noticed. He believed presence created control. I knew better. Real leverage lives in documents filed on time and conversations that never need repeating. It lives in trust accumulated slowly and enforced without emotion. Experience teaches patience because systems move at their own pace. You learn to trust frameworks instead of moods, process instead of pride, and permanence instead of moments that feel powerful but vanish quickly over time. As he argued, systems were already moving. Timestamps locked moments in place. Reports formed without urgency. Decisions were supported by policy rather than opinion. He thought he was being escorted out. He did not know he was being documented. The bouncer waited beside me with the steady patience of someone trained to move only when the decision was clear. The influencer kept arguing, his voice rising in quick bursts as if volume might change the reality taking shape around him. His followers watched through his phone, unaware that the room they were seeing did not operate on the kind of authority he understood. I let the noise settle. I let the moment breathe long enough for the contrast to become obvious. When I finally spoke, there was no shift in my tone. I did not raise my voice or explain anything. I answered the bouncer with the same ease someone uses to confirm a reservation. 2 simple words shaped the entire night and every night that would follow it. For life. The bouncer nodded once and moved with deliberate certainty. No force was needed. No spectacle formed. The decision itself carried enough weight that nothing dramatic was required. What happened next was not chaos, but quiet recalibration. Conversations paused for a heartbeat and resumed at a slightly different rhythm. Staff members straightened their posture without looking in my direction. Regulars recognized the tone of a final ruling and gave space without prompting. Even the music seemed to fold around the moment, not louder, not softer, simply aware of the shift. He looked around, expecting reactions or sympathy. None came. Authority does not seek applause. It simply adjusts the environment. The room had already moved on while he was still trying to understand what had happened. His phone stayed raised even as security guided him toward the exit. The live stream kept running, gathering comments from people who believed every moment could be turned into entertainment. He treated the situation like a performance, exaggerating his gestures, insisting the audience was witnessing injustice. He assumed visibility protected him. He had not yet learned that some rooms answer to regulations, contracts, and history rather than noise. He believed humiliation could be reshaped into content if he delivered it with enough energy. While he spoke to his followers, the real consequences began elsewhere. A sponsor representative called the club before he even reached the sidewalk, asking for the incident report. Another partner sent a short message requesting clarification about his behavior and whether their brand was associated with the disruption. Venues that once welcomed him for the free publicity stopped replying to his messages entirely. Silence grew around him faster than he understood. Security firms, who rarely comment on anything publicly, exchanged notes in their internal networks. They documented patterns and flagged potential risks. These conversations did not happen online. They happened between people who prioritize safety over spectacle. During all of this, I never posted a single word. I did not correct his version of events or engage with the flood of reactions. Silence is not weakness when you have systems that speak for you. Influence built on attention collapses quickly when the world that mattered stops answering. His audience kept watching a show that no longer protected him. He did not disappear quietly. Men who rely on attention rarely do. The day after his removal, he began posting long messages filled with accusations, insisting he had been targeted without reason. He talked about discrimination, unfair treatment, damaged reputation. He used the language his audience understood, shaping himself into a victim so he could remain the center of the story. Each claim grew in intensity as he tried to rebuild what he felt slipping away from him. Then came the threats. He announced he would file lawsuits, contact authorities, expose misconduct. He spoke as if legal systems responded to outrage rather than documented facts. His followers encouraged him, unaware that every institution he named required evidence, not emotion. While he shouted into a camera, the people trained to receive official complaints were reviewing incident reports that described the night with precise details and neutral language. Contracts did not care about his tone. They acknowledged signatures and dates. Insurance policies recognized behavior patterns, not social media influence. The formal record held more weight than anything he produced online. His arguments echoed loudly on the internet while the real process moved forward steadily, unaffected by his urgency. I watched the situation unfold without intervening. The system absorbed his anger the way a shoreline absorbs waves. It did not respond. It did not bend. It simply continued operating as designed. He remained loud, convinced volume could change outcomes. The machine stayed quiet, guided by structure rather than sentiment. And as it always does, the machine won. I watched the discussions unfold from a distance, not with frustration, but with clarity. People kept asking why I never released a statement or responded to his accusations. They expected a public defense, a correction, an explanation that would settle the noise. What they did not understand is that real power does not chase narratives. It shapes circumstances until the narrative no longer matters. Influence built over years does not argue with temporary confusion. It simply continues its work until the truth becomes self-evident without shouting. I did not ban him to humiliate him or prove a point. There was no anger behind the decision. It was a protective measure, a boundary set for the sake of the environment I had spent years maintaining. Access to a private space is a privilege, not an entitlement. It requires respect, awareness, and responsibility. When someone shows they cannot uphold those values, removing them is not punishment. It is preservation. People imagined I wanted an apology. I never needed one. An apology is only meaningful when it truly changes behavior, and his actions showed he was not capable of that shift. What I needed was distance. His absence restored the equilibrium that had been disrupted. The room returned to its normal rhythm once he was gone, and that alone confirmed the decision. This story was never about revenge. It was about values, about understanding that dignity is maintained not by reacting to noise, but by protecting the spaces where integrity still matters. If you have lived long enough, you already understand that self-worth does not need an audience. You do not need to introduce yourself in every room or defend your position to people who measure value with volume. Experience teaches you that the people who shout the loudest often have the least to stand on. Age sharpens the difference between noise and authority, and it becomes easier to decide where your energy belongs. There comes a point in life when you stop explaining yourself. Not out of pride, but out of clarity. You recognize that arguing with disrespect never creates respect. It simply drains the time you can invest in people and places that deserve it. When someone tries to diminish you, your response does not need to rise to their level. Your silence, your presence, and your boundaries speak with far greater accuracy. Real power is quiet. It is the ability to say one simple sentence and watch an entire situation align around it. It is the comfort of returning home after a difficult decision and sleeping without regret because you acted with intention rather than impulse. That kind of strength is earned through years of patience, observation, and controlled action. If you know your worth, you do not chase validation. You design outcomes. You protect your peace. And you allow consequences to educate those who refuse to listen. People who mistake access for ownership always learn the difference eventually.